Oh yes, and just before we start this, the previous one who did the thumbnail and the image that I used to illustrate these lore videos is not allowing it to be used any longer, so that's why I'm not. In what appears to have been a control room, Dong Rang noted that Shirin had shrapnel wounds. Why didn't she use a regeneration ampule? Gregor asked if she was okay, as she looked blank-faced, dismissing this as she's usually more carefree than this. Urtis saw this as more evidence. The terrorists long since made their leave. All that's left were bloodthirsty murderers hell-bent on killing them. As in Ran, who ended with a bang, along with her killer robots. She's made her judgment, asking what Misol thinks. He agrees with it. Sinclair wanted to know what they were talking about. Misol spoke of a traitor in their ranks. There was no doubt that remains in that matter. The spy leaks their course and plans from the moment they departed. To prevent further damage, they need to dispose of them there and now. Traitor is a foreign concept to Dante. Well, it's unlikely to be Dante or the Damned Dozen, so that eliminates the suspects to Dong Rang, Shirin, Samjo, and Nico. She tells Dante that the mission needs to be abandoned, as to allow themselves to be involved in this nonsense. Samjo was repulsed by this accusation and the suspicion. They trust each other better than them who haven't been in the same firm for a year. Well, about 4 months to be more precise. Dong Rang agreed with them, as the hypothesis sounds plausible. He'd have said the same. Samjo didn't know what to say. Dong Rang asked if Samjo had something to say. He had nothing. Then Urtis pointed out that the Rose Banner workshop didn't use regeneration ampules a single time since they came in there. Any sane combatant would kill to have those. Misol noted one more thing. When they encountered Ran, they were distancing themselves from her in advance. The only explanation is that they knew there was going to be an explosion. Nico was nervous at this, asking them to consider the possibility that his intuition was just that keen, and they weren't using the ampules because they're both healthy. But Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple were not convinced. Neither was Dong Rang. He brought a truth tablet. It'll make him incapable of lying. Much like Jim Carrey's character in Liar Liar, or pretty much anyone that's touching the lasso of truth wielded by Wonder Woman. Now there's something that isn't usually considered. I mean, what if the lasso was wrapped around someone who's a complete pervert and says something that Wonder Woman objects to? Such as, she has nice... I'll stop there. As for Jim Carrey's character in Liar Liar, he played a lawyer that found himself incapable of lying for 24 hours. And it was a red pill. This truth tablet, I mean... Oh, okay, that's a reference to The Matrix, isn't it? Where Neo took that to help Morpheus and his crew to wake him up to a world where he has metal nipples and a socket at the back of his neck. But that's not going to happen here, as Nico Ni saw that pill as suspicious. Dong Rang basically said, "You speak as though you have a choice. Take the tablet or make desperate excuses." He's squandering his chances to clear himself of suspicion. It's almost like you're asking to be killed, or did you decide to kill them all and get away with it? Nico thought a researcher's job was writing papers, and here he's writing fiction, calling him a deranged maniac. Well, there's certainly a spy, and if you weren't a spy, you'd have taken the pill to prove your innocence. But instead, he, as Heathcliff put it, showed his true colours when cornered, and pointed his chain, spanner, at them. He was slightly annoyed that they repaid him for teaching him to win at the slot machines, and so the Rose Spanner workshop becomes the enemy, and a damned dozen fights them to the death. During this fight, Nico called for a timeout. He was clearly desperate, believing that it was the sardine he ate that morning. His stomach was aching. One of his fixers was concerned. Reishu called bull on this. Sink is next, or off with your head, as a certain opium hallucination of Lewis Carroll would put it, that's based in Queen Victoria in early illustrations. That fixer said, "Shrine," and this caught Reishu's attention. Apparently she told them that while they're in there, don't ever use regeneration ampules, no matter what. Shrine then realised the game was up. The Rose Spanner workshop was just accessories to her crimes. She was the one who was the true spy. Nico mentioned that saying that out loud breached the contract. Nico, I think a breached contract is the least of your worries right now. Roger asked why Shrine told them that. The fixer didn't know why. She said that it would be revealed in due time. Dong Rang decided to test that out by suddenly injecting it into that fixer. Okay, I can see where this is going. As in, time for the token red shirt to die. That fixer tried to remove it, but it was too late. It was in his system. Nico could only watch. The fixer asked why he looked so surprised. What happened if that ampule was injected? Nico. He knew? And then that fixer felt weird. His limbs began to twist in strange angles. He was in agony and things protruded through the flesh. When this fixer was collapsed on the floor, Gregor found this familiar. Rudyard was also familiar with this. It was similar to that which was seen from the branch facility in District 4. It resembled lava or snails. All Nico could say was, "Oh dear." Shrine said that they should stop there. She dragged too many people into this. Nico said that it was his decision to take the deal for the money. He regretted not going on the bigger spree the previous day, if he knew it would come to this. Well, as Qui-Gon Jinn would put it, whenever you gamble, my friend, eventually you'll lose. After wiping out Nico and the rest of the Rose Spanner fixers, Dong Rang asked for the explanation from Shrine. Shrine was blankly looking at Dong Rang, as if she forgot to outwardly express herself, asking since when did she join their side. Shrine saw him as quite a piece of work. He's not even trying to act surprised. She didn't know that the damned dozen can be brought back to life without the regeneration ampules. She didn't factor this into her plans. When he asked her why she volunteered to follow him at the lab, she told him this. 3 of her co-workers died, when 5 of them died in the attack. 5 from K-Corp, while the 3 that she mentioned were casualties that the T.L.A. suffered. He also checked her network history. She was surprised that he was allowed to do that, and Dong Rang reminded her that it takes a full day and night to name all the benefits of the best employee, and one of them would appear to include access to the network history of other employees. Within reason, of course. Shane was tired of that best tripe. Shane exchanged quite a few emails, to put in better, some kind of message done electronically with Ran, even after she left K-Corp. And she didn't rely at all on things like connections with others. Well, certainly not with him, as she didn't reply at all to his offer to go grab a coffee together. Dong Rang, in this case, you're clearly not her type. Either she's a lesbian, they were close friends, or she just doesn't like you. Although I'm leaning more towards the first option, as she certainly respects her a lot. She did so ever since she joined. I mean, she was even stupid enough to set her password to Missy Ran. I mean, that's quite a giveaway, isn't it? As if we need any more incriminating evidence. And Samjo was shocked by this revelation. Yes, this revelation. As K-Corp's research facilities are the best workplace she could ask for as a scientist. It's a stable job that cares about the employees' well-being and has the limelight of the academy. Oh, spare us the corpo propaganda! Job security and survivability isn't a guarantee, even in a nest. He asked, why turn her back on that to collude with terrorists? She was seen as a researcher with a promising future. She had a long way to go compared to Dong Rang, but still. Dong Rang wanted her to say it herself. Why collude with them? Shrin then said the tears wouldn't stop. Dong Rang knew what she was talking about, and Shrin knows that as well. Asking if that was what they meant. Then, at that point, a flash of red appeared in front of her, and all was silent. It was as if a thin red line was drawn on her body, but it wasn't a line. Gregor was concerned about Shrin as she collapsed. Then it was revealed that she was cut clean in half, spinal fluid leaking from severed hemispheres, as if to say, there's no coming back from this, not even with regeneration ampules. Ryushu understood where this came from, telling the others to shut their mouths and keep still, not even to breathe. Those that slew Shrin, along with the wall behind her without letting even their footsteps be heard, were revealed at least to Ryushu. It surprised Ishmael, but Ryushu understood them as fixers, innately treading shadows, given the honor of being called Fits, finding this amusing. Not sure what that meant, but Ishmael figured out that they were fixers of the Shi Association, and this was an assassination request. Like the art ones that they could fight and defeat easily. It depends on how much they were paid and which section they were from. In this case, the pseudo-ninja, since only Ryushu was could detect them, so they were likely from section 4 or higher. Well, they would know, as There are identities accessible to the damned dozen, well, a few of them anyway, from Section 5. Well, there's at least one from Section 5, certainly. And none of those with a She Association were capable, well, She Association identity, rather, were capable of what that She Fixer was capable of. In fact, Yujin and Section 2 were capable of more, and they weren't even at their full strength at the time they were forced in the library by those within it. Samjo asked Shireen why, even though she was now in 2 pieces. Ryusho seeing that question as pointless now, complaining about the assassin's retreat, even though they couldn't see or hear them at all. Heathcliff saw this as ridiculous. They were torn by inner conflicts. Apparently, Shireen was mentored by senior researcher Ran when she first joined Keikor. Their bond lasted longer than he thought. Telling Dante that they were peers working for the same firm, yet there's still collusion, fraternity, betrayal, division, connivance. It happens in any group of people, seeing it as an inescapable cycle. Yeah, I get it. Treachery to some is as natural as and for those that haven't replaced their bodies with prosthetics. Dante failed to see the point in him telling them this. Dongrang asked how much they trust the damned dozen. Dante was confused by this question. Dongrang observed that Dante knew almost nothing about them, much like they didn't know anything about Shireen. Was he wrong? They don't even know which one has a history with him. I suspect that whoever hired that She Fixer, well, they didn't want Shireen to talk about anything. And as for the one with a history with Dongrang, well, I suspect that's going to be revealed quite soon, if it isn't obvious already. As for Dante, he knew about the histories of Gregor, Rodia, and Emile Sinclair. It's the rest that he's still figuring out. Well, they're still figuring out. Yes. Best get the right pronouns here, as in this case the gender is indeterminate, as the dialogue has made it clear. Dante then announced that they were almost there. They could sense the Golden Bough nearby. They were nearing the target location. Dongrang saw this as good. The photos and awards he left should still be there. Samjo reminding him of the classified documents being there as well. Then Yisang examined an ampule that Shireen dropped from the floor and carefully examined it. Dongrang saw this as kind of Yisang. He didn't have to pick that up. Yisang saw it as the same, that regeneration ampules abides by the same rule as the decay ampules that Ishmael was on the receiving end of earlier. Samjo then explained the serial code, the unique string of numbers to categorize them. Those starting with 0 are, well, starting with O rather, are original. Asking why he's explaining this again. Yisang understood that the decay modules and the regeneration modules use the same substance to make them. Dongrang explained that it's the undiluted solution, not like the commercially available ones, asking what he's thinking right now. What Yisang is thinking right now is nothing. And he made that clear. And it was revealed that it was Yisang that Dongrang had a history with, asking when did he first recognize him? Yi Sang replied that it was since he showed the chickens in captivity. A cursory tour would have sufficed, but he insisted on showing them his personal laboratory. Dong Rang confirmed this. He didn't know about the others, but he wanted to see the demonstrable proof of his success. He was still sad. He had plenty of time to express his joy of reuniting with an old friend of his. Yi Sang didn't see that he had companions by his side. Dong Rang saw him as not changing since their last meeting. He kept precious things in bottles and watched them. Yi Sang observed that he was intent on releasing and showing them. Don Quixote heard the word companions, asking if many reunions with companions awaited him on this journey. Well, we know that Gubo has a history with him, so that's not off by much. She even referred to him as the one wearing tinted eyewear. Dong Rang, understanding that, what she meant, believing why he was so detached with him. No, Dong Rang, he was detached with Gubo as well. He saw this as troubling for him, seeing as he'll have another to face. Dante asking what he meant by that. Dong Rang thought that everyone had made their escape thanks to Shrin's snitching, but that wasn't the case. Then we find out what he meant as someone walks in with a suffocatingly thick scent of flowers. Whoever this was, she was holding the Golden Bough in one hand and a worn photograph in the other. The hooded woman saw this as a fine photograph. Only one in that remained. Yes, only one photo remained that showed what was in there now. Dong Rang noted that so many old friends and not one to greet him with delight. I'm guessing that he didn't part on the best of terms. Well, he asked for that picture back. It's a cherished treasure of his. Samjo warning against getting too close to her. Urtis warned against carelessly approaching her, as the Golden Bough might be destroyed. Messot agreed with that assessment. Faust claimed to be able to find a way to retrieve it. Heathcliff was enraged by this. Why do they keep running into problems that a good pummeling can't solve? It's right infuriating. Heathcliff, not everything can be solved with brute force. As they kept arguing, the hooded woman steadily walked in their direction. She did not go for Dong Rang. She instead went for Yi Sang and stabbed him with the Golden Bough. Its piquant and fragrant scent made her feel as though the ground was shaking. She plunged it into his chest. He then collapsed on the ground. She didn't think that they'd choose him before their eyes. Dante was concerned about this, even though they could bring him back easily. She threw the picture at them, telling them that, he can have it back, seeing it as nothing more than a taxidermied moment, as in a past that's dead, at least as far as she's concerned. The Golden Bough still glowed, even after being drenched in Yi Sang's blood. Contrasting the golden drizzle, there was then the matter of the faded monochrome photograph that slowly fell to the floor, revealing that 9 were in that group. Among their number was Dong Rang, that hooded woman, before her hair turned grey, Gubo, and Yi Sang. It's certainly getting interesting, and this is only the end of Act 1. Let's see what Act 2 reveals. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!